Welcome to The Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed.
And today, we're really diving into a rapidly moving situation in the Middle East.
Absolutely. We're looking at the recent U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran and Iran's quick retaliation.
Yeah, the tit for tat is escalating. We've pulled together analysis from several sources here.
Right. We've got Discovery Alert, Colorado Public Radio, PBS, the Associated Press.
And some key economic viewpoints from ING Think and Capital Economics.
Plus a really important statement from the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, on the humanitarian side.
So the mission today is to unpack all this, focusing on that critical Strait of Hormuz, China's moves, and the global fallout.
Okay, let's dig in. The timeline here is incredibly tight. Things really deteriorated after June 22nd, 2025.
That was the date of the U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. We're talking Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, key sites.
But it wasn't out of the blue, was it? There were Israeli strikes before that.
Exactly. Israel had already hit targets back on June 13th, and then they expanded their attacks again on June 23rd.
Hitting more symbolic targets that time, like Evin Prison.
That's right. More symbolic, perhaps more provocative in a different way.
And Iran's response.
Immediate. Also June 23rd, they launched missiles targeting U.S. bases, Al-Udeid in Qatar specifically, and another base in Iraq.
Okay, but here's something interesting. U.S. President Trump then publicly called that response very weak.
He did, and he added two crucial details. Claimed they had advance warning, and noted that Iran apparently targeted areas outside populated zones.
So what does that signal? Is it posturing or something more?
Well, it could suggest, and this is just reading between the lines based on our reporting, a kind of careful calibration, like maybe an effort to respond forcefully, but not, trigger an all-out war.
A de-escalation attempt hidden within an escalation.
Potentially. It's a very fine line they're walking, if that's the case. It offers a bit more nuance than just retaliation.
Okay. Let's pivot to the Strait of Hormuz. This is always critical, but now.
Now it's absolutely center stage. It's that narrow waterway, only 21 miles wide at its narrowest.
And something like 20% of the entire world oil supply goes through it.
20%. Just think about that. And for a country like China, it's indispensable.
How much of their oil comes through there?
Over 40% of their imported crude. That's roughly 3 million barrels per day. And there's no easy alternative route for that kind of volume.
And now Iran's parliament is actually considering measures to close it.
They're backing the idea, yes. The threat is, if Iran can't export its own oil because of sanctions or conflict, they might try to shut the strait to everyone.
Wow. And that threat comes on top of the existing disruptions in Red.
Yeah, exactly. Where ships are already taking that long, expensive detour around the Cape of Good Hope.
Adding, 2 to 3 weeks to voyages?
Yeah, 14 to 20 days, roughly. And hiking up war risk insurance premiums by, get this, 300 to 500%.
Just staggering.
Yeah.
So against that backdrop, how's China reacting specifically to the Hormuz threat?
Beijing moved very fast. The Ministry of Transport, working through the China Shipowners Association, put out an immediate mandate.
Cool.
Comprehensive daily reporting for all Chinese vessels in the Strait, the Gulf of Oman, the whole Persian Gulf area, effective June 23rd, detailed daily logs.
Okay, makes sense for immediate safety. But there was more, wasn't there?
Yes, and this is fascinating. They also required retroactive data collection, going all the way back to January 2024.
January 2024, so months before these specific strikes.
Exactly. This suggests it's not just crisis management. It points towards much longer-term risk modeling, contingency planning. They've likely been war-gaming scenarios like this for a while.
So they're preparing deeply, but diplomatically.
Diplomatically, China's maintaining its usual balancing act, prioritizing its economic interest, practical security, emphasizing energy security, non-interference, less rhetoric, more concrete action behind the scenes.
Right. Let's zoom out then to the global economy. If Hormuz did close,
the impact would be huge. Analysts suggest global oil prices could spike maybe 25 to 30% very quickly, within days.
pushing prices potentially towards $120 a barrel.
Potentially, yes. And then you get the knock-on effects. Massive supply chain disruptions, higher transport costs everywhere.
Feeding directly into inflation, hitting everything from plastics to manufacturing exports.
Precisely. Which puts central banks like the Fed and the ECB in a really tough spot. They're already battling inflation.
And a major energy shock like this could completely derail their plans for interest rates.
It complicates their outlook enormously. And amidst all this, we got that statement from the ICRC.
Yes, on June 22nd, a stark warning.
Very stark. They basically said the world cannot absorb limitless war, calling for international humanitarian law to be upheld, civilians protected.
Medical staff allowed to work safely, and stressing that humanitarian aid, while vital, is no substitute for political will to actually pursue peace.
A crucial point. Aid can only do so much. You need political solutions to stop the suffering at its source.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really highlights the intense interconnectedness of everything, doesn't it? Military actions in one spot.
Instantly impact global shipping routes, energy markets thousands of miles away, and trigger these profound humanitarian worries.
It leaves us with a big question, really. As you reflect on this, think about how nations collectively can better safeguard this critical global infrastructure.
And maybe more importantly, how to prevent these localized, intense conflicts from spiraling into something much bigger, much more destructive for everyone.
A vital question indeed. That's all for this deep dive.